So as of today, we're officially 6 days away from market time, and this is actually one of the animals that's going to be going to market right here. And yesterday I was actually out. The landowner got back to me about the lease property, and I actually found myself another lease property. I was talking about I had found myself another lease property, and so I actually got myself 2 lease properties. I got 100 acres now. I got 100 acres for lease, and one of the lease properties actually has a well on it too. It's got a well on it, and so that's good. I mean, if it has a well on it, then I don't have to pay for the water. Nobody has to pay for the water. It's already there, and I don't have to pay anything. I got it, but the agreement is that I have to take care of the property, and the ag exempt has to stay in place. So I'm not saying it's free, right? Because at the end of the day, I have to go and I have to make sure that the property is kept up, right? The property's not run down, or the property's not being overgrown with brush or anything like that, right? In terms of a monetary value, I don't have to pay any money. So I actually got 100 acres of leased land for no money. The owner says that the owners, the 2 owners of the land, I got it's 2 separate pieces of land, and they told me that they don't want anything in terms of money. They don't want any money. But here's the thing: I was actually sitting there and I was thinking about this last night. But if I have 100 acres of land, of more land, if I legitimately have 100 acres more land, and I don't have to pay anything for it, that puts me in a very good situation financially. All right, I don't have to pay anything. All right, I just have to make sure that the ag exempt stays in place, and then I have to make sure that the property doesn't become run down, right? It doesn't become overgrown with brush. But if I do that, then I don't have to pay anything. And so I was sitting there thinking about this last night. And I've decided that, but because here's my situation, is that I prefer to pay. I would rather pay. All right, I just rather would. I feel like I just feel better if I pay. And because of the situation that I'm in, I mean, it's like I'm being leased land, and it's going to help me grow my business. And so I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay out a dividend, right? I'm going to pay out a dividend. I'm going to take a look at how much cash do I have left over in my accounts, in my business at the end of the month, and I'm going to pay that out. I'm going to pay out a portion of that as payment for the lease. So I'm going to offer a dividend. I'm going to pay out a dividend for the lease price. So the owners of the land, they're not asking me to pay anything. They don't want me to pay any money. They just want the property to not be overgrown with brush. They want grass growing on the land. They want to make sure that that I'm going to grow grass, and I'm going to keep their ag exempt in place. That's the stuff that they want. They're not asking me for any money. All 100. I got 100 acres of land, and I don't have to pay anything. And so I sat there and I thought about this last night. And that puts me in a very good situation, right? I mean, and one of these properties even has a well on it. And so they're not asking me to pay anything. And so I sat there and I thought about this last night, and I was like, in this situation, I could actually probably grow my business by about 350% in the next 3 months. I probably could. All right, I'm taking a look at my situation, and I'm even going to hold back heifers. I've decided that, I'll probably even start holding back heifers. I have a couple of, like a couple of these really pretty, like I have this heifer. She's really pretty right here. And then I got this one right here too. This one right here. Real pretty heifer right there too. And then another one, I got 4 or 5 real pretty heifers. They're they're real solid little calves, and they look good, and I was like, I'll probably even start holding back heifers. I'll probably even get into the cow calf business. I'll probably start producing my own calves as well, because I was I was out taking a look at these properties. One of them even has a well on it. And so I was like, that's fantastic. I mean, if there's a well on it, that's phenomenal. And both owners don't want anything. in terms of money, that they're not asking for any money. They're asking for somebody to take care of the land and to make sure that their ag exempt stays in place. And so I sat there and I thought about this last night, and I was like, starting next week, I'll actually start taking some of these animals over to the lease properties. I'll actually just start taking them over to the lease properties, and I'll start bringing in new calves over here, and I'll start preconditioning calves over here. And I can probably grow my business by about 350% over like the next 3 or 4 months. I probably could. And so, and I don't have to pay anything. I don't have to pay anything for the land. Excuse me. I'm not paying anything for the land. And so I took a look at my situation, and I've decided that I'm going to pay a dividend. And I'm gonna pay a dividend as the price for leasing the land. I'm gonna take a look at how much cash do I have left over every single month, and I'm gonna pay a proportion of that cash as a payment, as a dividend. Because I'd like to these people are gonna let me use their land for free. Then if they're gonna let me use their land for, granted that it's not free, right? If the ag exempt falls out of place, then I'll lose the lease, and if I don't take care of the property, then the ag exempt will fall out, or then the lease will fall out of place. But they're not asking me for any money. They're not asking me for any money. They just said whatever about the money. And so that puts me in a very good situation, right? Because I mean, I qualify ag exempt, no problem. Okay, I grow grass, I run cattle. There's no problem for me. Ag exemption is not a problem for me. All right, and so and that puts me in a very good situation, right? I don't have to pay anything for the land, and I have 100 more acres, and one of them even has a well on it. And so I was taking a look at the whole situation, and I was like, I can probably grow my business by about 350% over the next 3 months. And so I was like, what am I gonna do? Because and I figured, well, what am I gonna do? Not what am I, what am I gonna do then, right? And then now in this situation with everything how it's turned out, what am I gonna do, right? And I've decided that I'm gonna pay a dividend. I'm gonna take, I'm gonna buy everything. I'm gonna make sure that my farm is running first, right? I'm gonna take care of all the operating costs and everything, right? I'm gonna buy everything that I need first, et cetera, right? I'm gonna make sure that I'm preconditioning, the most animals that I can, and et cetera. But at the end of the month, I'm gonna take a look at how much, because I'm going to have cash left over, a large amount of cash. I don't even know how much. If I, in this situation, I legitimately have access to 100 more acres, and I don't pay anything for it. All right, even if I push this farm as hard as I could, maybe I could precondition 15 animals a month, maybe. All right, I'll probably be selling, I'll probably be running about 100 cattle within the next 3 months. I probably will. Within the next 3 or 4 months, I will probably have about 100 cattle. I'll probably put about 25 animals on the lease property. I'll probably put 25 animals on each lease property, maybe 30. And and I have 30 here. I'll probably have, somewhere around I would say around 70, 80 animals within the next 3 or 4 months. I probably will. And, and if I have 70, 80 animals, if I have 70, 80, okay, if I have, let's say I have 70, let's just say I have 80 animals. If I have 80 animals, and I can, and it takes me 8 months to get them from 200 pounds up to 800 pounds. Let's say it takes me about 8 months to get them from about 200 pounds up to 800 pounds. All right, and so in 8 months, if I have 80 cattle, that means I'd be selling 10 cattle a month. I'd be liquidating 10 cattle a month. Right now, I'm liquidating 6 or 7, right? And so within 3 months, that number will have actually gone up to 10. And if I liquidate 10 cattle, I will make enough money to buy like 20. And if I liquidate them at 800, if I liquidate animals at 800 instead of 650, I will actually make enough money to buy more than 2 cattle every single time I liquidate one. It will probably be like 2.2 animals, 2.1 animals, something like that. And so, I don't, I'm gonna end up in a situation where I have I have a significant amount of, and I won't be able to do anything with it, I won't be able to do anything. You know, I can't push my preconditioning program any harder, right? You know, my preconditioning program, I'm effectively, you know, running my preconditioning program as, you know, as efficiently as I can already. Even, you know, even if I take all of these animals out of this, out of the, you know, this is what I call the stabilized herd, right? Even if I take all of these animals over to you know, the 2 different lease properties, and I utilize this area as a preconditioning area, and you know, granted that I would start them off in the smaller pens first for about 2 weeks, and then I move them out here. Even then, I mean, you know, the smaller pens, I can really only hold about 7 animals at a time. I could really only maybe precondition maybe 15 animals a month, maybe. And so you know, I don't you know, and I'm not looking to whatever, but you know, and I don't exactly know how much money I'm gonna have left over, but it's gonna be a pretty substantial amount. And so, you know, I'm gonna take care of the business first. I'm gonna make sure that my business is growing. I'm gonna make sure that my business is doing well. I'm gonna buy everything that I need first. I'm gonna pay for everything that I need to keep my business running first, right? I mean, you know, I always pay yourself first, right? I mean, that's a saying in business, always pay yourself first, right? I'm gonna pay myself first. I'm gonna make sure all of my bills are covered. I'm gonna make sure all my expenses are covered. I'm gonna make sure that my business is running as efficiently as possible, as effectively as possible. And after I do that, at the end of the month, when I have the money left over, I will distribute a portion of that money as a dividend to the people that I will distribute a portion of that money as effectively as a dividend, but it will be for the lease payment. And so that's what I figured I'm gonna do, because, you know, this puts me in a very good situation, right? This puts me in a very good situation. I got 100 acres and I don't have to pay anything for it. One of them even has a well on it, and it's good land. I mean, it's flat. It's not in a flood zone. It's it's not in a flood zone. It's flat. There's not a brush everywhere. Nothing. I mean, it's a good piece of land. It legitimately nothing wrong with it. One of them even has a well on it, and they're not charging me anything. And there are a lot of these properties out there. I found this property on Facebook Marketplace. And so, you know, that's where I found it. If you want to go and look around in your area to see if you can find one, you know, go and see if you can find one. But that's where I found my lease property. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. I actually found 2 lease properties on Facebook Marketplace, and they're 50 acres each, and they're both free. So I don't pay anything. But in this situation, that's very, very, very financially beneficial for me. And I've decided that as of right now, instead of because me, I would rather pay. All right, I would rather pay. Money is not something that really, you know, whatever, right? I mean, you know, I would rather pay. And so, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start distributing a portion of the money that I have left over every month as a dividend. And I'm gonna use that effectively as a dividend, but it's gonna be for the payment for the lease. And I don't know how much it's gonna be. It'll be maybe whatever, right? A couple hundred, $300, $400, $500 a month. But I mean, that's about $5,000-$6,000 a year, and you know, whatever, right? I mean, I don't know exactly how much it's gonna be. I don't know. I don't want to throw numbers out there because I don't know. It might be more than it might be less. I don't know. But I'm gonna distribute a portion of the money that I make every month. Not a portion of the money that I have left over. I'm gonna take a portion of the money that I have left over. I'm gonna make sure I buy everything that I need first. I'm gonna make sure that I do everything that I need to do first, right? I'm gonna look out for myself first. If you want to go on some moral, oh my God, you know, why are you looking out for yourself? You know, throw yourself off a bridge. All right, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. You know, it just is what it is. I mean, I don't believe in altruism. All right, if you legitimately want to make it like this, you're gonna have to do the work yourself. You know, and this was not easier for me. This was borderline impossible for me too. It took me almost 15 years. All right, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. All right, you know, communism does not work. There is no sharing the pie evenly. At the end of the day, you know, every individual has their own decision-making process. It's not. I don't go around saving people, right? You know, I do what I can to help people. I take time out of my day every day to help people, but I do not save anybody. All right, I don't. It's not, it's not something that I do. It's not something that I, at the end of the day, I can't, it's not even up to me. All right, it's not up, at the end of the day, it's every individual for themselves, and you're going to have your own decision-making process. And, I would highly suggest that you go and, you find your peace with God, and there are, and figure it out. There are a lot of ways to make money. You don't need to become some like 1 in a billion cattleman. I may legitimately be the only person, like one of the 3 people on the entire planet that can do something like this. It might not even be 3. Most people cannot make $25,000 a month doing anything, let alone running commercial cattle on a 10.5 acre field. Most people can't. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Most people cannot make $25,000 a month doing anything. Legitimately, neurosurgeon, brain doctor. You cannot make $25,000 a month doing anything. And I mean, and I would say that my field probably makes somewhere between about $20,000 a month, and I'm on a 10.5 acre field. All right, most people cannot make $20,000 a month doing anything. And I managed to make this money on a 10.5 acre field running commercial cattle. All right, I may be one of maybe not even 3 people on the entire planet that can do something like this. How many people do you know? It's like, I can legitimately just take this guy and take him to a random field, this is a very good example. I'm just going to be going off to a random field, right? I mean, I'm going off to a random field, and I'm going to start a cattle business on both of these pieces of property. And I would anticipate that, I probably put another 30, I put 30 animals on one property, and I put 30 animals, maybe 50 animals total, 25 and 25. They're both 50 acres apiece. And I have whatever, right? 30 animals here. So that leaves me with 80 animals, right? Right. I mean, I would, and I have 33 right now. So I would increase the size of my business by about 250% or something like that over the next 3 months. How many people do you know that can do that? Let me just go and find myself a random piece of property somewhere, in the middle, wherever. Just let me just go and find a piece of property, and I'm just going to start running cattle on it and just make myself whatever, right? I'm just going to do very well for myself. How many people do you know that can do that? And this is also what I mean by, if you actually take a look at the numbers, and if you want to take a look at it in terms of a drastic sense, almost everybody, and you probably don't understand this, but in terms of my reality, if I look at somebody who is farming, it doesn't matter how many acres they have. They could have 500 acres. They could have 1,000 acres. They could have 2 acres. It doesn't matter. I can tell what their balance sheet looks like by looking at their farm for 30 seconds. And most people are actually closer to being homeless than they are to doing well with themselves financially farming. Most people are. I guarantee it. A lot of people are in a situation where they're making like $200, $300, $400 an acre a year. Oh, I mean, like, not a year. I mean, maybe they crop it twice. Maybe they run 2 crops on it, right? And maybe they make $400 or $500 per crop, so $1,000 an acre per year. All right, and and I'm not throwing shade on anybody. I'm just saying, you just gotta take a look. It's objective. You gotta take a look at it for what it is. All right, you got to take a look at it for what it is. You have to understand that when you look at something, that if there is a monetary evaluation involved, you need to be able to understand how much money that is. And a lot of people are barely making it, if not making it at all. All right, and especially in farming. Farming is not some easy thing. I legitimately don't even know anybody that makes even 10% of the money that I do. I don't even know anybody that does even 10%. All right, and take a look at it for what it is. I mean, it's not some debatable thing. I mean, legitimately, just sit there and take a look at it and think about it. And I'm giving you this perspective because, at the end of the day, it's the truth, right? I've always said, and I've been even talking about this yesterday, and I've been saying this for a long time. At least I'm telling you the truth, right? It may not be anything else, but at least I'm telling you the truth. All right, farming is not some easy thing. There are a lot of ways that you can make money. You probably don't. I mean, you probably aren't going to make it as a cattleman. I would bet money. I don't know anybody that's even doing 10%. Nobody cares about an opinion. All right, you got to take a look at it for what it is. I am telling you that it just is what it is. All right, at least I'm being honest. All right, and I got myself a couple of lease properties, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start running cattle on them. I don't have to pay any money for them, but I've decided that I'm gonna pay, and I'm gonna offer a dividend to these two landowners. I'm gonna offer them a dividend of my total earnings. I'm gonna take a look at how much money I have left over at the end of every month, and I'm gonna pay them a proportion of that as a dividend payment. But but me, it doesn't matter. I could go and take a look at a 500-acre farm. I can go and take a look at a 1,000-acre farm. I can go and it doesn't matter to me. I can legitimately just look at the farm, and whatever it may be, they may be growing wheat, they may be growing corn, they may be running cattle, whatever it may be. I can actually, within a reasonable margin, tell you if that individual is actually making a substantial amount of money or not. And in reality, a lot of people, if you actually take a look at it for what it is, it's like, they bought, the farm has been in their family for 4 generations. They paid off the land 200 years ago, right? They don't owe anything for the land. And so now they're just on cruise control. They're not even looking to do any better or anything, right? They're just looking to make their $1,000 an acre, and that's it. Right, and this is also what I mean by when you take a look at the owner of the business and see what direction the business is going. If you have a business that is growing, it is worth substantially more. Sky is the limit. Nobody knows. I mean, if is this business legitimately growing? And if it's just, and this is what when I talk about business evaluations, right? If you have a mom and pop shop, if you legitimately have a shop and it's just like one mom and one pop. That's the shop, and it's just been doing good, right? It's not exactly doing better every single year, right? It's not really doing better every single year, but it's not doing any worse, right? The business is just kind of doing okay, and it's been kind of doing okay for a long time. You talk to the owner, and you legitimately take a hard look at the owner, and you've come to the realization that this owner more or less just wants to do the same thing forever. They're not interested in growing the business. They're not interested in whatever, right? They just want to run the mom and pop shop like a mom and pop shop forever. That's their idea. And if you were going to purchase this business, what's a reasonable offer for the business? Granted that you're not buying any real estate. You're just going to buy the business. What's a reasonable offer? About 3 to 5 times the earnings, right? You take a look at how much money the business makes at the end of the year. You take a look at how much money the business makes, and then you multiply it by 3 to 5. All right, you multiply it by 3 to 5. But let's say that you take a look at a business and you're like, this is a business that's been doing better every single year. The earnings of the business has actually been going up. The owner of the business is a very solid individual, and they actually have a plan for growing the business exponentially or even substantially, whatever it may be. They actually are going to grow the business, and they've actually been growing the business for several years. Then that business that is growing is going to be worth substantially more. 15, 25 times the earnings, who knows? Sky is the limit. If you offered me $10 million for 10% of my business right now, I would, I don't care about your worthless deal. Trust me, I don't. If you legitimately offered me if I legitimately got an offer for $10 million for 10% of my business, that I wouldn't even sell 10% of my business for even 25 million. I don't. The money does not matter to me anymore. The money does not matter. If I legitimately was going to make more money, if I legitimately felt like I needed more money, do you know what I would do? The answer should be obvious. I would just run more cattle. I would just farm more land. I'm not going to sell 10% of my business for some trivial sum of money. I mean, we're not talking about 250 million, right? I mean, I'm not going to, why would I sell 10%, and just be reasonable about it, right? I wouldn't sell 10% of my business for even 25 million. If I legitimately felt like I needed more money, which I don't think about, I already have plenty of money. And the amount of money that I'm making is actually going up exponentially every single month. All right, I got my whole thing situated. All right, I got everything situated. I got 100 acres for free. right? Not for free, but and I'm gonna pay a dividend as the lease contract. I've decided that I would rather pay, and I'm gonna give a percentage of the money that I have left over every month as a payment for the lease. All right, I've decided that that's what I'm gonna do. All right, and so I'll probably end up growing my business by 250% over the next 3 months. All right, but when you take a look at these things, it's not up for debate, right? It's not up for debate. When you have a business, if you're purchasing the business and you're not purchasing any real estate, you're just purchasing the business. All businesses, it does not matter what business that you are looking at. All businesses are evaluated the exact same way. All right, and if you're not purchasing the real estate, you're just purchasing the business, you're not purchasing the real estate. Depending on what kind of a business you're looking at, the multiple will be different. All right, that's it just is what it is. I don't know what else to tell you. Nobody cares about your opinions. It just is what it is. All right, if you have a business, and this is a very realistic way to look at it. Let's say that you have a business, and the business is whatever. It's actually been doing worse every year. Right? Then that business, and a majority of businesses that are for sale don't even get sold. All right, so let's say you take a look at a business, and let's just be honest about it. If you were looking at a bunch of businesses and you were gonna buy a business, you should also understand this as well. A majority of businesses fail. Majority of them do. Majority of them. And this is also what a majority, a vast majority of businesses fail. All right, let's just be honest about it. I mean, I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just saying a majority of businesses do fail. Majority of them, more than 70%. It might even be more than 80%. All right, and so if you took a look at a business and the amount of money that the business was making was negative, then that would be very bad, right? The business would be failing. If the amount of money that the business was making every year was actually going down, that would be bad. The business is on its way to fail. And then you also have businesses that are just kind of like, and I also consider this a fail too. Like if you're going to run a business, and because if you're going to run a business, and it's like, you're going to have to be there 7 days a week, and you're going to have, this business will be your entire life. And it's like, if you barely make enough to get by and you run a business, why would you even bother running a business? Right? Why would you even bother running a business? I don't, figure out, get a license or something, and or do something, and get yourself a good job. Right? I don't understand, why would you have a business? It's like if it's barely making you enough to get by, why would you run that business? What's the point of that? Right? I mean, you're going to have to work on this business like 7 days a week. I mean, and you may have to be there from open to close every single day. And, at the end of the day, you're still barely making any money. And I consider that a fail. All right, that's a failure of a business as well. Right, and then but if you have a mom and pop shop, and there are a lot of these businesses, not a lot, but I mean there are several of these businesses too. If you have a mom and pop shop, and it's actually been doing pretty good, right? I mean, maybe whatever, it makes $200,000 a year, right? And it's been making $200,000 a year for a very long time. And actually, if you were going to go and buy a business, what I would suggest, if you're legitimately going to go and find a business, and you're just going to run a business, like you're not looking to, be the, you're not looking to, push the business further or anything like that. You're just kind of in a situation where you just kind of where you actually want to run a business, and you just want to make a, good sum of money. If you find a business, it's like, the business has been making 200 grand, 250 grand for a very long time, right? I mean, they've been making 200 grand for the last, 5 years. The earnings of the business has not really gone up, but the earnings of the business has not really gone down. And so you take a look at it, and the business makes $250,000, and the owner's selling it for $750,000. So that would be a 3 times multiple of the earnings, right? The business makes $250,000, but you're buying it for $750,000. And the rental, you have to pay for the rent of the land, right? You're not going to buy any real estate, so you're going to have to pay for the real estate. And let's say that the rent is it's $7,500 a month. So, you're making, whatever, you're making, the business makes, whatever, $20,000 a month. The business makes $20,000 a month. You pay the rent, which is $7,500, and you still have $12,500 a month left over. The business has been doing that for a very long time. I mean, and at the end of the day, you can pay for the business with the money that the business makes itself, right? But at the end of the day, if you're legitimately looking at running a business, if that is really what you want to do, you should be in a situation where you actually have a plan for making the business do better. I would highly suggest it. I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where you're cruise controlling. I'm gonna buy this thing and then I'm gonna cruise control into infinity, and I've already said that if you make a set amount of money every year. And I would actually anticipate that inflation is going to be bad. Inflation is legitimately going to be pretty substantial over the next 10 years. All right, we're going to have a problem with inflation. All right, inflation is going to be pretty substantial for the next foreseeable future. And because at the end of the day, if something bad looks like it is going to happen with the economy, if the economy starts to plummet, we may legitimately have we may legitimately be in a situation where there is just trillions of dollars of deficit spending. If that legitimately looks like it's going to happen, that might be the result, and that would make inflation even worse. So, I mean, and how do you get ahead of inflation? You hold on to assets. That's how you do it. All right, because assets are, assets, and I talked about inflation in terms of a broader idea. The idea of inflation is when you have more money, right? Because think about the economy as money, services, and goods. So you have money, and with that money, you can purchase services and you can purchase goods. If you disproportionately expand the amount of money without increasing the amount of goods and services, there is more money chasing the goods and services. And so assets are effectively the equity evaluation of those goods and services. Let's say that you have a business and your business produces a service and it produces you money. The equity evaluation, that whole situation that you now have, where you have a business that produces a service and that service produces money, that business is worth a multiple of the money that you make. If your business is growing, the multiple is higher. If your business is failing, then it's failing, and nobody would touch it with a 50,000-foot pole. All right, a majority of people fail. You have to understand this, especially if you're going to look at businesses. A majority of people flat out fail. You don't want to purchase a bad asset. You don't want to be in a situation where you are purchasing a bad asset. If you purchase a bad asset, I mean, you are not saving that asset. I guarantee it. I can almost guarantee it. There is no saving anything. All right, you don't want to purchase bad assets. You don't want to have bad assets. But think about the economy like that: money, goods, and services. And let's say that you start a business and you produce a good. You produce beef. Let's say that you have a business and you produce a service, right? Whatever the service may be. That business has a monetary value associated with it. That monetary value is a multiple of the money that you make. But now let's say that the goods and the services are all equal. The goods and the services, there hasn't really been a large expansion in the amount of goods and services in the economy, but the government has printed trillions of dollars. There will be a roughly equal number of goods and services, and there will be more money chasing the same goods and services. The asset evaluation will increase. Why? Because the amount of money that is chasing the same number of goods and services has gone up drastically. And if you are holding assets, there will be more money chasing the same assets. There will be more money chasing the same assets. And I talked about this in terms of Coca-Cola. A very realistic way to look at 25% inflation from what I am describing, from what I am telling you, a very realistic way to look at this is if a can of Coca-Cola is $1 today, there is a very realistic possibility that that same exact can of Coca-Cola is going to be worth $1.25 to $1.50 within 10 years. The same exact can of Coca-Cola. Why? Because the economy is still inflating. There is more money chasing that same can of Coca-Cola. There was more money buying that can of Coca-Cola. So the price of Coca-Cola is now $1.25, $1.50. And in this situation, people will still buy Coca-Cola. And that's why I believe that Coca-Cola is such a good company to, if you legitimately are looking for equity and a reasonable evaluation, right? Whatever it may be, and the stock produces a 3% dividend. I mean, Coca-Cola is a very, very, very good company for this kind of situation, because people will still buy it. Even if the price of that can of Coca-Cola went from $1 to $1.25 to $1.50, people would still buy it. And when they do so, the earnings of the company will go up because they are still producing the same product, but they are charging more for it because there is more money chasing those goods. When Coca-Cola makes more money and you are holding on to stock of the Coca-Cola company, you own a small portion of the company. If the evaluation of the company is going up, if the company is making more money, then your stock will go up as well. And there is also a 3% dividend. All right, and I've talked about this. I've been talking about this in great detail over the last several weeks, right? But if you are holding on to assets, you will be, inflation. But here's the thing. And I'm going to just be completely honest about it. Because, me and my assets, I love holding assets, right? I actually forego holding cash to just have assets. Legitimately. Maybe I have, and a very realistic way to look at this is maybe I have $25,000, $35,000 cash. I have $35,000 cash, but my net worth is about $5 million. I legitimately dump my money into assets. I think I put like 170% of my earnings every year straight into assets. And that's a very realistic way to look at it. My net worth is probably between $3 and $5 million, maybe even higher. And I only have $35,000 cash. That's a very realistic way to look at it. I love holding on to assets. I actually forego holding on to cash to hold on to assets. And in a situation, but the thing about me is that people like me, it doesn't matter. If the economy goes down, it doesn't matter. I'll just go skipping off to the bank and I will just borrow, money at borderline 0% interest rates. I don't care. I will just continue to make money. If anything, it's like I will just buy more assets. It doesn't matter to me. If everything legitimately tanks tomorrow, I will just buy more. Where you don't want to be is where you legitimately are just kind of scraping out the bottom your entire life, hoping that things kind of just stay okay for you. That's where you don't want to be. Delusional fantasy. Right? I mean, you're better off investing your money. I guarantee it. Even if the market falls by half tomorrow, if you start buying the S&P 500, and even if the S&P falls by half tomorrow, legitimately, let's just say that the S&P 500 goes down 50%. Then just keep buying it. What does it matter? Go to the bank and take a loan. You can legitimately probably borrow money for borderline 0% interest rates. If the S&P legitimately falls 50%, you could go to the bank and borrow money for practically free. All right? Don't even worry about it. All right, legitimately, if you are buying the S&P 500, if you're buying the S&P 500 and one day you wake up and you look at your stock portfolio and the stock is plummeting, thank God about it. Oh my God, thank you, God. And then go skipping off to the bank. Borrow money. You can probably borrow money at borderline 0% interest rates. This is what I mean by once you start collecting assets, money no longer matters after a certain point. It does not matter. It's all the same thing. Cash, assets, equity, it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Once you start collecting assets, money becomes negligible after a certain point. All right, that's why I put so much emphasis on the S&P 500. All right, if you are legitimately buying the S&P 500 and you wake up one day and you take a look at your stock portfolio and the S&P 500 is down 50%, go skipping off to the bank. Be happy about it. Don't freak out. Don't sell your stock. No, nothing. Continue to buy it and go skipping off to the bank. Borrow money. Money will be borderline 0% interest rates. All right, you could borrow money for very, very, very cheap. All right, but you really want to start collecting assets. I guarantee it, you are better off investing your money. You have to start if you do not invest your money, you will probably die poor. Have fun with that. I can almost guarantee it. And if anything, things are probably going to get worse. All right, we may even have over 25% inflation over the next 10 years. We might. It might be like 2.5% compounding every single year for the next 10 years. It might be like 3% compounding every single year for the next 10 years. It might be. If there is something horribly wrong with the economy and it looks like evaluations, it looks like the stock market is going to crumble to pieces, it looks like the broader U.S. economy is going to crumble to pieces, the government may legitimately step in and start printing trillions of dollars, and then you're really screwed. All right, then you're really screwed. I mean, then asset prices are going to skyrocket. All right, and so and how do you get ahead of this situation is you purchase assets. That's how you do it. And when you purchase assets, buy good assets. Buy assets, good assets that produce positive returns, and buy them at reasonable appraisal values. If you're looking at a stock, what is a reasonable way to get an evaluation of that stock? Should you just be looking at the price? No, you should not just be looking at the price. What should you be looking at? The price to earnings ratio. Why? Because all businesses on the entire planet, but at least in America, all businesses are evaluated the exact same way. If the business is making money, you take a look at how much money that business makes and then you multiply it. The number that you multiply it by depends on how well the business is doing. Is the business growing? Is it growing substantially? Has it been doing okay for a very long period of time? Does it produce at least a decent amount of cash flow for you to at least make a living? I mean, there are a lot of things to consider. Right, but at the end of the day, all businesses are effectively evaluated at a multiple of their earnings. And so if you go and you take a look at the S&P 500 and you say, oh, well, the S&P 500 is sitting at 28 times earnings, P&E ratio, and, and I believe that the economy is going to do whatever, 5%. And you should also have an idea of what direction the economy is going. Do you think the economy is going to do better next year? Do you think the economy is going to do worse next year? I mean, come up with a reasonable idea. We're probably going to have some pretty drastic inflation. The economy is probably going to do very good. All right, President Trump is doing a lot to bolster the economy, right? I mean, he's threatening terrorists on various countries. That's very good, right? I mean, because that's very good. I mean, and President Trump and the whole thing about Musk and Doge. I mean, Doge is reducing the government. Reducing government benefits all Americans equally, right? It does. You don't want some giant government, all right? Giant government is not going to accomplish anything. The government is very inefficient. It's not going to do anything. President Trump is looking to stop all of these various wars too, right? He's looking to stop wars, and he's strengthening the country's borders, and he's doing all of these things, right? He's tariffing other countries, and he's doing all of these things, and he's doing very well. The economy is probably going to do good. It probably is. All right, if you actually take a look, I mean, reducing government, reducing regulation is going to do a lot to benefit every American. All right, you don't want some giant government, right? I mean, who wants a giant government? All right, President Trump is doing a lot to really, really, really benefit the U.S. economy and the entire U.S. population as a whole, right? He's stopping these wars, and he's looking to stop these wars in various foreign countries, right? And so, he's looking to, get this whole, the whole Eurasian continent, to stop blowing each other up. That's very good. That benefits all Americans equally, if not the entire world. All right, he's looking to, reduce the, he's got a whole, the whole Musk and Doge situation, reducing the deficit spending. That's good. That benefits all, reducing government. That's very good, right? I mean, that's very good. Reducing government, reducing the deficit, all of these things, stopping wars, all of these things benefit the entire country drastically. Equal opportunity for everybody. This is what I've been talking about, right? It's an equal opportunity for everybody. Everybody benefits if wars are stopped. All right, everybody benefits if the government is reduced. All right, effectively, right? I mean, it's equal opportunity for everybody. He's not just cherry picking people and doing things that benefit certain people and don't benefit others. He's benefiting. It's a benefit for the entire country. All right, so the economy is probably going to do pretty good. I would say that the economy is going to do good, and even if it doesn't do good for a little bit, over the long run, this is the right thing to do. Right, whatever. Tariffs are increasing the prices on goods, whatever. Get over it. Eventually it will work itself out. Don't worry about it. I mean, it doesn't matter. All right, if he takes that tariff money and reduces the deficit, that's very good for all of us. Even if you have to pay more for certain things, and it doesn't matter. All right, reducing the size of government benefits all Americans equally. Reducing the deficit spending benefits all Americans greatly, right? We're stopping wars across the planet benefits everybody greatly. Right? I mean, it's an equal opportunity for everybody. And so, the economy eventually it's gonna and if you take a look at the S&P 500, and it goes from having a 28 P&E ratio to 25 to a 22 to a 20 to an 18. You shouldn't even be worried. You shouldn't even be worried about the stock price. You just got a better deal. All right, if the economy is legitimately looking like it's going to do better, but the P&E ratio is dropping, you just got a better price. You just got a below market average deal. But you got to also consider that the amount of money in the economy right now is pushing stock evaluations to a relatively high level. But I wouldn't be too concerned about it, because I mean, unless there is a drastic reduction in the monetary supply, asset evaluations are probably not going to fall. They're probably not. Because right now, the reason that asset evaluations are so high is because there is such a large monetary base. The number of goods and services has not really increased drastically over the last 10 years, but there has been a substantial increase in the monetary supply. So the amount of goods and services that you can buy are not, there's not a lot of them. There is not a massive increase, but the number of the amount of money that is chasing these goods and services has increased drastically. So unless something happens that reduces the monetary supply, asset evaluations are probably going to stay high. They probably are, because it's a result of having too much liquidity in the system. And if something happens that legitimately looks like the monetary base, the monetary supply is going to shrink pretty drastically or anything like that, if I see it, I will let you know. But as of right now, evaluations are high. But the reason for that is because the amount of money that is chasing these evaluations, the amount of money that is chasing these goods and services and pushing up the asset prices, the amount of money has been disproportionately increased compared to the amount of goods and services in the economy over the last 10 years. That's why it's happened. So if we are legitimately going to see a reduction in a lowering of asset evaluations, we actually need to see a reduction in the monetary supply. And I don't see a reduction in the monetary supply yet. I don't see it. I mean, granted that there are a lot of things that could happen, right? I mean, and that's not the only way that it could happen, but that's one way that it could happen. There could also be massive credit default. Right, like if commercial buildings start defaulting on a massive scale and the banks start going under with them, there could also be a massive credit default. If there's a massive credit default, I will let you know about that as well. All right, but as of right now, things are just kind of, I would actually anticipate that inflation is going to be kind of bad. Coca-Cola might be something good to consider for an environment, something like this. But the price of Coca-Cola is a little, actually, if I was going to buy a stock today, like I woke up this morning, I took a look at the stock market, I would actually buy silver. Silver was a very good price this morning. It was like it's been down for like 3 days, and it was like -1% this morning. Silver, I would, silver might be a good purchase. Silver, I was taking a look at the whole situation with silver. Silver might be good. Like if you're legitimately going to go and consider purchasing an asset today, silver is going to be worth money from now until forever. Okay, silver is not going to go to zero. Silver is a good stock. I was actually looking at that this morning. But, if there's a massive credit default, if there's a shrinking of the monetary supply, if something looks like it legitimately is going to crumble the economy, then I will let you know. If I see it, I will let you know. But I don't really see anything like that happening over the next, several, if Iran nukes Israel, right? If there's some black swan event, if China joins Russia in the Ukraine war, if there, if something like that, if something like that happens, then sure, the economy could freak out, right? And then the government, oh my God, China is helping Russia with the Ukraine war, and we need to send support to the Eurasian continent, which has nothing to do with us. But oh my God, if China helps, if China's helping Russia, then we need to, whatever, right? We need, I mean, sure, I guess it could erupt into World War III, but whatever, right? I mean, if something like that happens, I will let you know, and then I will tell you what direction I think that asset prices are going. But I don't see anything like that happening as of right now. All right, and so that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.